They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but in the case of Ebola Village, it's less flattery, more felony. This ain't just the Wish.com version of Resident Evil, it's the knockoff you'd find in a skip in Chernobyl. The dev clearly looks at Capcom's Golden Goose and said, yeah, let's do all that, but worse, much worse. Every system, every mechanic, every atmosphere-drenched corridor that Resident Evil made iconic has been butchered. Ironically, by the time the credits roll, you'll be praying for a mild case of Ebola yourself just for the sweet release. So it's bad, but just how bad? Well, put the kettle on, grab a cuppa, and let's contract some Ebola together in today's review. Whilst I sit here twiddling my thumbs waiting for Doom to release, I thought I'd knock out a review of one of those random indie games that sneaks into your Steam list like a P. Diddy DM. Now, let's be honest, this ain't some big studio, instead we're talking a one-man band here, probably making games in his pants with a pot noodle in hand. He's already released a few other Ebola-branded horrors too, bless him. But just because it's indie, don't mean it gets a free pass. You lot are still coughing up $15 for the pleasure, but Ebola Village for me opens up a wider discussion around indie games of this nature, hence why I thought it was worth reviewing. Ebola Village kicks off in the weirdest way imaginable. You're some hot chick lying on her bed with her hand in a, shall we say, suggestive position. Real classy start. She's glued to the telly, taking in news reports of worldwide chaos, Ebola outbreaks, death, panic, you know, the usual Tuesday. But I couldn't focus on the global meltdown because front and centre, just next to the TV, is the biggest fucking jar of pickles I've ever laid eyes on. Like biblical levels of brine. Why is the pickle game so strong in the end of days? Who's hoarding cucumbers like their currency? Given her suggestive position at the start, maybe the pickles are more than just for eating. Anyway, one awkward fade to black later and you're up muttering something about needing to call your mum. Bit of a mood shift that, but if that wasn't surreal enough, it's the mission objectives that really tickle the bollocks. To leave the building, you first need to find your driving licence because apparently, even during an undead apocalypse, the coppers are still handing out tickets for expired licences. But wait, there's more. To get your ID, you've got to restore power to your own bathroom. Why? Because it's too dark apparently, which is super odd as your character already has a torchlight seemingly wedged between her cleavage, beaming brighter than a Las Vegas casino. And just when you think it can't get any stranger, you wander into the stairwell and find some random geezer sitting there strumming a tune on his guitar. He doesn't speak, doesn't move, just vibes. Maybe it's a deeper metaphor for life in post-Soviet suburbia, or maybe he's just lost. Either way, you flip the breaker and you're off. What could possibly go wrong from here? Now look, the story in Ebola Village is a load of old bollocks, but let's be honest, no one's booting this up for Oscar-worthy screenwriting. You're here for the scares, the tension, the oh shit, what was that moment, right? Well, bad news, sweetheart. This ain't any of that. Not a single proper scare to be found. What you do get instead is accidental comedy of the highest order. Your first tango with a zombie, not a slow, ominous reveal. Oh no, it's a cutscene where the bastard literally materialises out of thin air like David Blaine, then proceeds to go full Jackie Chan, tackling you to the floor and mauls you to death like you were the last bit of food alive. Proper martial arts zombie apocalypse this, and just when you think that's the peak of nonsense, he lobs an axe at your head in a moment so familiar I had to pause and check I wasn't playing a Resident Evil 4 remake mod. Then comes the cherry on top, the moment the game asks you to put on a costume which turns out to be a straight up carbon copy of Jill Valentine, like not even trying to hide it, just slapped on the outfit and called it a day. And this, my friends, is where we need to address the rotten, festering elephant in the room. Ebola Village isn't just inspired by Resident Evil, it's a full-on bootleg down to the knickers, a shameless tribute that forgot to bring the actual gameplay, tension or polish with it. Now look, Capcom don't own zombies, they don't have a monopoly on horror, they ain't got the undead trademark like Mickey Mouse, but here's the disappointing truth, the dev here clearly has talent. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Asset flips, reused models, probably bought half the Steam store in an Unreal sale. Fair play, but for a one-man band I still tip my hat, because Ebola Village is technically a functional game, and in places it don't look half bad. But that's what makes it all more frustrating. If you've got that spark, that proper talent simmering under the surface, why waste it by cloning every last bit of Resident Evil like a dodgy Chinese DVD? I mean, come on lad, be inspired, don't just Control-C, Control-V the entire franchise. The zombies look like they've just walked off the Resident Evil set. The environments scream Eastern European Raccoon City from Resi 4. Herbs for healing? Check. Grid-based inventory? Check. Squeaky doors with a cutscene? Check. Cosplaying as Jill Valentine's lesser-known cousin from Minsk? Oh, you better believe it. Check. This ain't a loving tribute, it's identity theft with a dab of Vaseline. And that's the shame of it all, because a game based around an Ebola outbreak done with a bit of guts and imagination could have pushed the genre somewhere we haven't seen before. Something grim, grounded and genuinely unique. But instead we got Resident Evil Wish Edition. As for the gameplay, well, it's as absurd as a nun in a strip club. You'll stumble across little houses with locked doors that can only be opened using keys shaped like, yes, you guessed it, a playing card. Proper Ace of Spades Resi Evil energy. But the real kicker, you open the door to these shacks and suddenly you're in the TARDIS. Tiny shed on the outside, a rundown mansion on the inside. Your main job inside these bizarre funhouses is the usual: find a thing to unlock a thing to trigger a thing. Standard horror game fare, but the item placement, bloody criminal. Some of these things blend into the background like a ninja in a blackout. The only way to find them is to run around hammering E on your keyboard like you're sending a desperate message on a broken typewriter. And then there is the puzzles. It's frighteningly easy to get soft locked or just plain stuck. I scoured every room, every wall, every shadow like a crackhead looking for a drop tenner. Nothing. Eventually I found a door I'd missed. Great. Fresh zone, progress at last, except nope, just 20 more minutes of running in circles, chasing that elusive bloody E prompt on my keyboard. Just as I was about to Alt and F4 and go outside to touch grass, boom, a cutscene triggers. Out comes Zombie Grandpa. Beat the old sod down and suddenly he drops the magic key I needed all along. That's right, all that aimless wandering just to wait for a scripted pensioner punch-up. What really grinds your bollocks into dust is the inventory system, and I use system loosely because it feels less like a gameplay mechanic and more like a psychological experiment in suffering. It's brutally manic, borderline sadistic, and I'm convinced the dev designed it during a fever dream while smashing back energy drinks. Now don't get me wrong, I'm all for limited inventory, bit of strategy, bit of tension, sure, but this is taking the piss. You get so little space, it's like your character's carrying everything in a handkerchief. And to make it worse, key items cannot be dropped. So you pick up something essential like your car keys, well, congrats mate, you're now stuck with them. Can't swap them and come back to them later. Instead they just sit there like unwanted party guests while you're out there scrabbling for bullets and herbs. And speaking of herbs, you can't even use them when you find them. Nope, you've got to pick them up first, juggle your pathetic little inventory and pray that you've got space. Want to combine bullets? Not allowed, unless you drop the bloody box, back away like you're defusing a bomb, then go pick it up again. And heaven forbid your inventory's full when you finally get the prompt to grab that essential quest item. What's the solution here? Well, you gotta hike all the way back through a level to your stash box like it's in the middle of the London Marathon. Dump your precious crap in there and then go back for the item that you couldn't pick up. All this whilst annoying and zombies groan like teenagers at you. It's mental, absolutely bananas, and by the end of it I was genuinely hoping I contracted Ebola just to bring this misery to a nice tidy close. And as for the scares, yeah, not really mate. The zombies are more comedy club than Crypt Keeper. You can hear them stomping about from a mile off. I call it gammon feet. big old slabs of undead ham slapping the floor like someone dropped a butcher's counter down a stairwell. They don't sneak, they waddle like pissed up uncles at a wedding. Combat's a bit of a laugh too, truth be told. You pop a headshot and instead of a clean kill, their flesh just sort of peels away like wet wallpaper until it's just bone left. A right messy exfoliation session, and of course it wouldn't be a Resident Evil tribute without the classics. Zombies that sprout some plant-based horror from his head. Seen it all before, mate. But here's the thing, Ebola Village does occasionally get the vibe right. Some of the environments, proper grim. Dusty rooms, cluttered shelves, a real sense of a society that's gone tits up. The lighting's dark without being daft, and the corridors feel nice and claustrophobic, like a good horror should. And this circles back to my earlier point. The dev here has got talent. You can see it buried under all the rip-offs and reused assets. If he just embraced his own twisted ideas instead of doing a Capcom cosplay, he could make something truly special. Graphically, it's mostly a swing and a miss. Like someone tried to make a game using textures they nicked straight off Google Images without bothering to click view full size. Some of the assets look so low res, I half expected to find a Shutterstock watermark still clinging to the walls. The animations, comedy gold, especially in the cutscenes where everything feels like it's been sped up Benny Hill style. And when the zombies come for you, some of them do that fast-paced London power walk, you know, the too late for the bus but still trying to look casual shuffle. Terrifying? No. Hilarious? Absolutely. But credit where it's due. There are moments that surprise me. Early on, I walked into a room, rain trickling down the windows, soft flickers of light bouncing across the floor, and for a second I thought, hold up, has this thing actually got atmosphere? And yeah, it kinda does. The dev's clearly got an eye for a good scene, even if the follow-throughs are wobbly. That said, the overall presentation is a deja vu buffet of copy-pasted rooms and cookie-cutter buildings. Lighting and ambient occlusion are as basic as a British pub salad. It's got potential, but what this game really needs is someone to help on the art front. Someone who knows their way around shaders and shadows, not just Control-V. Still, I've seen worse. At least this one made me laugh between the screams of confusion. Right, let's talk sound, and believe it or not, this is where Ebola Village actually pulls its finger out. Shock horror, I know, but credit again where it is due here, because the audio work is surprisingly solid, and for a one-man dev, that's no small feat. Gunshots land with a satisfying whack, like slapping a raw steak on a kitchen counter, and when a zombie's head finally bursts, it's a full-on splatterfest, like someone drop-kicked a watermelon into a jet engine. Proper gruesome and proper funny. The ambient sounds do a lot of the heavy lifting too. You've got buzzing lights, echoing footsteps, the distant creak of a door that may or may not lead to your next awkward death, and then there's the silence, sweet eerie silence, used just enough to make you squirm. It's tense, and not in the my pants are too tight way, actual atmosphere instead here, folks. It's all pretty damn good. The theme music's pretty spot on too. There's a few lonely piano notes like it's building up to a proper horror flick. Honestly, I wish there was more of it. Could have used a few moody tracks sprinkled throughout instead of letting things fall too quiet for far too long. Now the voice acting, abysmal. Sounds like Google Translate had a nervous breakdown, but look, it's a solo dev, probably doing the lines himself in a tin shed with a sock for a pop filter, so I'll cut it some slack. Points for effort, none for delivery. All in all, the sound design is easily this game's strongest asset. Shame you can't hear it over the sound of your own frustration half the time. So then, Ebola Village, one of those Steam indie releases destined to get buried under a pile of asset flips and hentai fishing simulators. And look, if you want to stand out in that chaos, you've got to do something bold, something different. Sadly, this one doesn't. Instead, it clings to Resident Evil's hard work in the hope that no one else will notice. It's got some truly criminal inventory design, a tone that veers wildly between horror and unintentional slapstick. I mean, I'm not even convinced the dev meant for me to laugh this much, but here we are. And graphically, it's rougher than a builder's ass after a sandpaper bath. Now, if you've got $15 burning a hole in your pocket, honestly, depending on where you live, use it for 2 or 3 pints down the boozer and have a proper chinwag with your mates about your ideal horror game ideas, because chances are you'll come up with something more original and more terrifying than this Resi Evil knockoff. That said, and this is important, indie games are the grassroots lifeblood of PC gaming. So yeah, Ebola Village scores low for quality, but I still tip my hat for the effort, because for every rough one like this, there's a Phasmophobia or a repo waiting to remind us what proper indie brilliance can look like. Until next time, my lovelies, love to you all, Reggie out.